قال in Surah Ar-Rahman, Allah says, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. The entire chapter is filled with an enumeration of Allah's blessings. Then, verse after verse, that cry is repeated. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. And which of the bounties of your Lord will you deny? For us, our years, unlike the years of the people around us, our year begins with sorrow. Because in these days, we commemorate the stand and the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah. And a lot of our majalis focus on the Messiah, on this tragedy. What I would like to talk about for a little bit اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. What I would like to talk about, or at least remind ourselves, myself first and foremost, is the message we take from the life of Abu Abdullah. Because really, it's the life that sets the stage for the tragedy of Karbala. Karbala becomes the culmination of a journey. And it is that life, just as we aspire to die like Abu Abdullah in Ziyarat Ashura, when we recite, may Allah give us the death of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. It is always prefaced with a dua to give us the life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. What do we see in these lives? What we see in these lives of all the Masumeen is a paragon of standing up for truth and righteousness, regardless of the time that we face ourselves in, the lands we are in, and at the same time, remembering that our responsibility is to remember God, no matter the state we find ourselves in, not to let our sins cause it to despair of the mercy of Allah. In that sense, the lives of the Aimma are the blessings of Allah upon us. And which of the blessings of Allah will you deny? As Allah Himself says in Surah Al-Quran. And I invite myself, I'll ask myself first and foremost. I come to the majalis, masala, every year. After a certain age, all of us, like especially for those of us who come from Muslim countries, we have a set, almost a routine where we will go for the 10 nights. There are majalis, there will be azab, then Arba'in and Fatimiyya, so on and so forth. But really, what is it that we take away from these majalis? Like Brother Hussein Allen said earlier, whenever we attend one of these, our goal should be to try and take at least something from them that we can apply in our day-to-day lives. Maslan, when we go back, how have we really examined our life? Is our life an examined life in the sense that we have upheld the principles of the deen that Rasulullah brought? Of the deen for whose ta'wil, for whose implementation, if you want to call it that, or explanation, Ali fought as Rasulullah fought for the reputation. And for the deen for whose sanctity, Imam Ali sacrificed his life. Look at our own lives, brother. And I call upon this first and foremost on myself. How much time do we take to do tazkiyatun nafs? How much time do we take to really look at our own souls, be it in the darkness of the nights or in the brightness of the days, when we are alone or when we are amongst our brothers, or heck, when we are even amongst strangers for that matter? How much time do we spend? Do we look at our lives? Do we see, am I upholding the message of Abu Abdullah? Am I attaining proximity to Allah with my actions? Are my actions pleasing to Allah? When the Imam of our times, we have narrations which say that the Imam of our time receives a record of our actions every Thursday. What am I sending for? Am I sending forth actions that show that I have stood by the covenant that I have made with Allah, that I will be true? Or are they actions that will cause them sorrow? And in that sense, I think it's always good to go back to the lives of the Imams and to see, Maslan, it's not to say, not to try to de-emphasize the tragedy of Karbala, but look at what makes Imam Hussein Imam Hussein. What causes the people, Masalan, to say, I mean, like I think Brother Ali said, like even the Ashab, the night before, Imam gives them the freedom, leave. This will not be held against you. What do they respond with? Say, Ya Aba Abdullah, were we to be killed, butchered, cut into pieces, resurrected, killed yet again, butchered yet again, we will not leave your side. They knew what was coming. Did they stay out of Masalan what could be called a misplaced sense of loyalty? That this is, oh, the leader of this clan, this holy lineage that we're following? Or is it really that understanding that he stands for certain principles that are non-negotiable, and our lives should be modeled on the same? And if, just as a slight digression, if somebody were to ask and say, okay, Masalan, maybe they stood by him because of those clan loyalties, or even, it was his family, and it was that lineage that granted him that sanctity. Imam Ali al-Rida, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He himself puts that to the light. There is an incident in his life. One of his relatives was bragging about his lineage, saying, okay, we come from this sacred lineage that makes us righteous and in effect better than the people. The Imam himself goes to him, and instead of tackling him directly, he asks one of the people around him, he's an Iraqi, Ajrakumullah, by the name of Hassan ibn Musa. And he asks him, he says, Ya Hassan, are your people familiar with the ayat in Surah Hud, in which Allah says, the son of Noah is not from you? He says, yes, Ya Imam, we are familiar with the ayat. He says, then what is the understanding of your people of this ayat? The man replies, he says, Ya Sayyidina Nuh, from our perspective, the son of a Nabi can never be unrighteous. So that must mean that the son was from an earlier marriage that his wife has had, hence he was not Nabi Noah's son. That is what Allah is trying to say. The Imam corrects him. He says, no, that is not the case. I can assure you that he was Sayyidina Nuh's biological son. Rather, what Allah is trying to tell you is that if you stray from the principles, it does not matter what lineage you come from. You are not counted from them. Masalan, you could be the son of Sayyidah Zahra, and he says it. And if you have strayed from the path, you will not be counted from amongst us. And at the same time, you could be someone from a completely different bloodline, a completely different land, and you uphold the principles that Allah wants you to live the life of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, inshallah, you will be counted from amongst us, as is the case of Salman al-Farsi, or Salman al-Muhammadi, as Rasulullah himself calls him. So this brings us back to Imam Hussein. Why did the people stick by him? Was it because of the lineage? No. Was it because he represents as the grandson of the Prophet? To an extent. But really, it's the fact that he has lived his entire life by those principles. Spent his days, even as a child, living by those principles. And not only living by those principles, teaching the people those principles and how to uphold them. And we see this, Masalan, even when, and it's a very famous narration where, the Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they see someone praying, an old man. And he's not praying correctly, he's not doing wudu correctly. So they go to him. And instead of teaching him, Masalan, okay, what you're doing is wrong, Haji, someone like myself, that's what I would do. It's like, oh, has nobody ever taught you how to do wudu? No. What do they do instead? They ask the man to watch over them as they do wudu. And then by doing that, the man himself realized, okay, it's not my wudu, that's not correct. They're doing it perfectly fine. And you see, even think something as simple as that. Okay, just helping the people. And in a way that is not condescending, in a way that is not disparaging to them in a way that does not mock them or insult their intelligence. How many of us uphold that? Muslim, when we are at work or when we are in university and somebody comes to us and they could be certain, okay, on something that they're not correcting. How many of us follow that same example? And we ask them, okay, like, are you sure this is right? Or how many of us go all out and say, no, Habibi, I am right, and I don't care what you're saying? Are we really following that principle? Even things such that are insignificant, Muslim, that we would think, you're getting on the bus. How many of us wait for the elders to get on the bus before us? Or maybe help someone out who's got a ton of groceries or small kids, right? Even somebody, Muslim, is at work, they come to you with a question and you tell them, no, sure, I'm busy, go away. Or at the university, at college, you see someone, Muslim, getting bullied. And all of us say, oh, Abdullah, if we were with you, we would sacrifice our souls. Are we ready to really be in that stage? Have we lived the life that would prepare us to die the death of Hussein? And I ask this first and foremost of myself. How many of us have done that? And it's something, Allah Azim, it's something that one cannot say that it comes to us overnight. Right? It is an entire life that has to be spent in that manner. And it is a life, even, and I say this first and foremost of myself, when we sin, often we despair. And we're like, okay, Ya Allah, now I have done this sin, whatever it may be, I have been removed. It's almost like I can never attain that sense of grace and return to the form. Even I think in the book 50 Greater Sins, I think that's why you read it, it's interesting, like the way that despair is quantified almost. The greatest of sins is shirk. The second greatest sin is despair of Allah's mercy. The third greatest sin is despairing of Allah's mercy in public. What does that teach you? There is always a way back. If you think you've done something wrong, okay, don't think that has automatically, blocked the path for you to live a righteous life. Nay, the doors of repentance are always open. The doors that will lead us to live the life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad are always open. It really is on us, right, to benefit from their example. In that sense, their example is really the greatest blessing that Allah has given us. Which other religion, in that sense, and I don't want to get into, comparing any other religion in that sense, but at least even if you look at it on the level of practice, which other religion shows you that you have someone who goes, and even as Brother Ali himself recited, he's like, on the land of Karbala, somebody whose brother has been sacrificed, whose sons have been sacrificed, whose entire family has been sacrificed. And what do you say? What do you see her saying? Like, may Allah accept this blessing from us. And all I saw was beauty when she is in the court of Yazid. And she's asked about that incident. So, the examples are there. The examples are there. And it becomes a constant struggle for all of us. But that does not mean that it is a struggle that should not be fought. It is a struggle that we must not despair of. There is a famous saying, at least in the subcontinent, I think in Iran and the greater Middle East, they say that every land is Ashura and every day is Karbala. One understanding of it is within the dimension of justice, oppression as a whole, as a societal whole. And absolutely, that dimension cannot be de-emphasized. There is no doubt about that. Every day we have oppression, and every day we have injustice, and just as how Abdullah stood for the principles of truth and justice in the face of oppression, we need to do the same. But at the same time, we have to look at it from the perspective of the individual. When we recite Ziyarat-e-Warisa, what do we recite? We say, I bear witness that the Imam established Salah, gave Zakat, and did Amar bil Maruf wa Nahi an Munkar. He enjoined the good and forbade the evil. And we see the same thing, Maslan, even in some of the addresses of the Imam when he's going. And it says, why are you going? He says, I am going to preserve the enjoining of the good and forbidding of the evil. You go back to every land is Karbala, every day is Ashura. Are we enjoining good every day? Are we forbidding from evil every day? And I say this first and foremost for ourselves, for myself. Am I enjoining good upon myself before I ask from anyone else? Am I forbidding myself from evil before I try to discourage someone else? Something I think all of us, if we live that life, if we go into every year with these days, that is a lesson that has to be first and foremost in our minds. Even, for instance, in these modern, societies, secular societies, everybody has a New Year resolution. It's like, okay, I'll go to the gym more often, I'll try to lose weight, I don't know, I'll try to finish these books that I've been putting off, I'll try to learn a new sport, whatever it may be. For us, for 1400 years, we come from a school where every year begins with these 10 days. What is stopping us from making that, even if you wanted a New Year resolution, that every year I will try to be better. I will try to follow the path of Aba Abdullah. I will try to understand that if every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala, I will try to stand true, regardless of the nature of that Karbala. Because that Karbala is different for different people. The same way as and we see this, masalan, even for Imam Ali, alayhi salam. We always hear from the mimbar, okay, he's going and he's lifting the gate of Khaybar, allowing the Muslims to proceed. In our own lives, we have those same battles. Our Badr might not be the Badr that Ali faced, obviously. Our martaba, our stature is nowhere close to Ali. But at the same time, we have the same struggles. For ourselves, masalan, for ourselves, it could be, okay, here's a job that pays, I don't know, $50,000 more, but I have to compromise on my principles. I have to maybe work in an industry that's haram, masalan, that sells alcohol or something of that nature. Or if I'm doing this work, I will be, I don't know, away from my family all this time, or it will take me away from my family. It will make me a horrible person. It will take me away from the deen. Do we really consider that sort of option? How do we really weigh ourselves when we are in those states? And in that sense, that's what I mean when I say every day is truly Ashura, every land is Karbala. We need to remember ourselves. Yes, there is the struggle against injustice, but at the same time, there is the struggle within ourselves. We have to stay true to it. Just as how Imam Hussein has demonstrated in his entire life. And at the same time, therein lies the paradox of Karbala. Just as how every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala, there can be no day like Ashura. There can really be no land like Karbala. You see this even from Salat al-Fajr. Haji Jawad recited for us Surah al-Fajr, and as Brother Hussein Alan said, it has a very interesting association with Imam Hussein. One of the narrations say that was the surah that he recited in Salat al-Fajr. And what is the nisbah of that surah? If you look at not even the context, but really the subject, what is Allah trying to convey to the people? He's trying to remind them, okay, there were all of these nations that came before you, Ad, Samud, Fir'aun. And for all of them, they spread fasad, they spread corruption in the land, they spread injustice in the land. And then they reaped their reward, if you will, for it. So even in Salat al-Fajr, that is the message that the Imam is trying to convey to the people, to remind the people. And that is what we stand by. That is what makes Imam Hussein Imam Hussein. You see this, and subhanAllah, it all goes back to the ma'rifat of the people. There is a reason, masalan, you see even his companions, they uphold the same principle. It's not something that is ever considered negotiable. When Ali al-Akbar enters the tent, what does he ask his father? Says, "Oh Father, are we not on the path of truth and righteousness? Then what does it matter if we become death or death becomes us?" Imam Ali in Khutbatul Muttaqeen, he likens it. They say one of the signs of the Muttaqeen is that the longing for meeting Allah is so intense that were it not for the time that Allah has apportioned them for this world, their soul would already have left this world. They know that the time they spend in this world is brief. That is why they exhaust their souls working for the sake of Allah. And you see this onto the moment of death in Karbala. Hazrat Abul Fadl Abbas, on his mother's side, there was a tribal connection with Maslan Shimr. He comes to them. What does he offer? He says, "We offer aman, we offer safety to you and your brothers. Forsake the side of Hussein." What does he respond? He says, "Does that offer extend to Abu Abdullah? Nay. Then I refute that offer. I reject that offer. Because there is no aman for Abbas unless there is aman for Hussein." And you see that you continue on until Imam Hussein is left by himself, sands of Karbala, alone. And Yas Hal min Nasi Yansurna. Where are the ones who would be our helpers? And today, brothers, I ask of ourselves, when we say Labbaika Ya Hussein, what do we mean? Are we really ready to be the Ansar of Imam Hussein in our day-to-day lives? Are we ready to help Muslim, whoever we find who needs help? Muslim, non-Muslim, I don't know, Arabi, Ajami, doesn't matter. Are we ready to uphold the principle so that when we answer the Imam, Labbaika Ya Hussein, I may be in the wilderness, Ya Abu Abdullah, but I will stand with you. So much so that when I say, even when I say that to the Imam of my time, I am being sincere. Go back to Imam Hussein. Keep that in our minds, brothers. If there is one thing I would ask, keep that in your minds. Imam Hussein standing alone, asking, where are the people who will help him? And if we are ready for our Imam to be his helpers. Imam goes, and that is the state within which the Imam goes to his death. May Allah give us all tawfiq. That's all I would ask. To live the life of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad and to die the death of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. May Allah hasten the reappearance of our Imam, so that he may fill this world with justice as it has been filled with injustice before. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.